Good morning. This is my second take because we froze again. So I'm praying that this time we will go ahead well and easily. And I'll keep my hands off the table and see if that makes any difference. I wanted to talk about how we freeze in space and time this morning. I read a book called about it actually, and I'll show you the cover. I was going to read from it, but it was on the table, and that's why we froze, I think. Just connecting to the light. Why the light? Because in the light we have love, and the love can transform wherever we're stuck on the inside. I found this because when I was ghost busting, I would bring light in. And one day after I'd done a lot of ghost busting work, I came home and I thought, well, what is on the inside is outside. So why not take this and say what is on the outside is in the inside? And so I went inside and began to recognize as I worked with the energy that I had a lot of frozen, what I call frozen emotional children. Because when we freeze in the emotion, and usually it's a traumatic one, a painful one, and one that's not really, what would you say, easy. But what I used to do after doing some experiments with this is when I would actually go to bed at night, I would I worked a lot with a yellowy gold color, but you can take whatever color you want. You just need it to be that you feel really, really good in it. And if you can feel the universal love, that's even better. And then you start at the bottom of your feet and you just slowly, you got to work slow with energy. You work slowly bringing the color up through your body. All of a sudden you'll feel you hit a knot, like it doesn't flow through. And what you want to do then is just take your mind in and let it expand into the memory that's there. Now they can be in any places in your body, in your legs, but usually in the bulk of your body is mostly where you find them. Although I even found some in my head. So it's like as you come on up, then excuse my cough. I'm really this cold is taking hold of me this morning. So excuse me on this. I'll just have another sip of water. Then, and I didn't take cough medicine. So then as you come on up, when you come to that, you want to get as much information as you can and then give it over to the light, to the color. Let it disperse all the pain, the thoughts you had, usually the thoughts that we made about ourselves. We're not good enough. Who knows what's in there, but usually they're young. We start very young. I found is like, well, maybe because I did this. No, I was an adult when I was doing the clearing work. It's not as many as an adult as when you're young because you don't have the resources to be able to deal, cope, or handle it. Guilt is probably one of the biggest emotions that we need to clear because underlying all your reactions, there's often a guilt feeling as to that you're not good enough. Why should I, all of those elements that go on about who you are, what you are, and how you are. Most people, when I was really doing a lot of therapy work with people, I guess you could call it that, transformation work, which I found many as what it grew into doing these big transformational things I do with people to find out where all their blocks are. But what I found eventually was the element that we need to know that we are loved. I'm going to call it the divine, by God, by the light, by the essence, the love essence that's here in all things, in the earth, in the trees. Trees are great for healing. I know people will talk about how they go up and hug a tree and take the essence of the tree. I didn't do that. Wasn't my way, but many people I know do that. They use the earth too. The earth will absorb. You can let things go down through the bottoms of your feet into the earth, and the earth takes it and negates the pain. What do we do without pain? Where do we put our pain? Usually, though, if you have an aspect of pain, if you have a feeling, you can turn it into a color. Now, it may not be a very nice color. You may have judgment on the color, but then if you breathe into that color, all of the significance of what went on with that color will begin to take an awareness. It will begin to take a sense of direction of who and what you are. It becomes so much more. And so this is what I said in like my book, Connecting to the Light, as we talked about a lot of different things, but it was about how we can. And why I'm talking about that this morning, because a friend texted me and said that all of a sudden she was having all these memories. And I went, oh, well, yeah, I'm just so used to dealing with memories. I mean, it's not that I don't have emotions now. I can get very upset, but it's because of what's happening in the now, not so much what has happened when I was little, because I spent years making sure I was clear as I could be. And a lot of those happened when I was in my 40s and 50s that I began to really recognize, because it took me a while to figure out that what I was doing in past life regressions and what I was doing in my ghost busting work was transforming energy. That's when I realized that we had these what I called inner ghosts, and they dictate the life often. If you have an emotion that keeps repeating, if you have circumstances in your life that keeps repeating, then you know that it's in here somewhere. So the key is to go find it. And that's why I used to start at the bottoms of my feet and come up with a color. And you can use different colors. It doesn't matter. But it's like knowing it's loving, not just, and you don't go fast. You go slow. When you're working with energy, anything you're working with energy, the slower the better. Because you want to be able to really get that. So, I mean, I work quite quickly because excuse me. Now I've got a hearing. I cannot believe this morning. Oh, well. This subject is not always easy for people to hear or listen to, because we like to think we're whole and complete and everything is fine. But as I say, if you have the same situations keep cropping up, the same emotions, the same awarenesses, then you need to go deeper inside, and you can do that yourself. It's always nice to have a therapist, or a person who does work like I do, where we're releasing emotions and clearing blocks and all that stuff. It's like that we need to, if you're working with yourself, you need to know two things. Find a color that has love in it and go slow. If you want to find where you've got knots inside, start at the bottom of your feet and bring your color up as slow as you can. It's not easy because we tend to want to go zoop. Oh, there we are. Here we are. All beautiful. But if you go slow, it's like all the little bits of gravel, all the little knots, wherever they are, will show up. And don't be surprised how young some of them may be. If you can set up a mental talk to the block. So you've got a block now in the color. So you want to find out how old they are. You want to find out, do they know they're a part of you? You'll be surprised how many don't know that. Their reality is that little time, what we call it, we could say time stamp, but it's like a time block. And that's where they live and hang out. That's why you keep having the same situations come, the same feelings arise, is because these aspects are attracting it, because that's their reality. So when you clear that, what you begin to feel, excuse me again, what you begin to feel is an element of wholeness. You become more whole. It's easier to feel the love connection. It is easier to free up your imagination, because yes, you're going to have blocks in your brain more, but I find that we tend to hold in our body. Well, I'm a body, as you can see, a little bigger, so I follow my genetics well. So you follow that where it is. Where you may be carrying a little bit of weight, then you can just go very, very, very slow, and you might find what you have in there. We forget we're part of a whole. Hand off the table, Norma. We forget that the universal love force is there for us and that we need to bring that in to become more complete. I had some other things here in my booklet I had marked that I thought I could just read a little bit, could make it clearer rather than me kind of pulling from my memory. But it's, and I didn't have time to, I should have made some headings, but I thought I could pull it from the book. But I'm not putting the book back down on the table and leaning on the table again. I want you to know how much energy you have and the connection to the higher power, whatever you call it. Now, when I was little, I went to Sunday school, people, so I had from the time of 3, from the time you were 3, I went. 2 older girls down the street took me to Sunday school, came by, picked me up, because my mother was very religious. She was raised where they went to church 3 times a day on a Sunday because her father was involved in the church. I went to that church till about 12. Then I went to another church, which was a whole different type of church. And I learned a lot more, actually, until all of a sudden I was about 15 and I started work and I played sport and I just didn't go to church anymore. But I always wondered about God. My goal was who and what was God. And that was my endeavor. It was to figure it out. I played field hockey for years, from 15 to 18 when I came here to Canada. And I had to walk up this quite a long hill up to where I lived after practice. And I would contemplate God. Who's God? What's God? If I saw something, that meant God was real. If I didn't, it was like, honestly, the mind games I played, I knew all about those. And it was only after I came here and I began to get involved with the tarot at the age of 21 that I learned more about how God worked. And I don't care personally what name you call the supreme power. It's, if you call it love, if you call it God, if you call it Allah. I've worked with Sikhs, I've worked with Hindus, I've worked with many different cultures who came in to learn with me. And we all seek the same thing, to be at one with what I call the love force, to understand the love force, to know the love force, to be at one with the love force. So that means we need to be able to bring that energy inside and transform those parts of us that are blocked, which I call the frozen emotional children, because it's usually in children's state we do it. Not saying we don't. I found some quite, as I was in my 40s when I really started doing this a lot, was some of them were, like here was the young one and there was the next one and then there was the next one. And so that you could be even in your 30s and 40s, blocking and getting. So that when you think of it, we could be, if we had X-ray vision, we could be a series of all sorts of blockages. So the energy is not running smoothly. And it's very easy to do. And often when we get ill, we'll feel guilty, like especially those of us who have worked on being as connected to the light as we possibly could be. But we're human. And sometimes things still happen. And we feel guilty. As I was talking about, I think I got myself sidetracked. That guilt seems to be one of the ones that we really hold on to feel guilty that we exist or who we are, whatever. But there's many, many other words we can also, any emotional word we can freeze in. It's really interesting, though, as you come older, that for me, it's been a sense of having a closer connection to the love energy. That's why when I'm talking, I'll talk about the love energy rather than name it. Because once we put a name, like if I say God, anybody that has a reaction to the word God is going to have a reaction to that. And I understand that. I understand if you're raised to believe in a higher power, like Jehovah, but they all mean the same thing. If you go down and look, they all mean the same thing, is that supreme power that is here on this planet. I'm not saying it's on other planets. I do know it's here, and I do know it comes from the earth. And everyone says, go high, go deep, get in contact with the Mother Earth, get in contact with that force that's here, that comes out and people have created. Now, I have a person that I really admire a lot. He's an Australian, was a priest, studied the Bible way, way back, and I love, anytime I've listened to him, and I've listened to him a lot, and he came up with just a new interesting one on YouTube the other day. I actually sent the link to my son, and he comes back and says, I love him, and it's true, because this is more truth than you're going to find in the regular Bibles, and about how the aliens came and what they did to the earth, and how it's quite a big story, but it makes sense to me. It sounds right. You know, something sounds right, and it fits in with what I've seen, experienced, and because of all the reincarnational work I did too, and I did all that myself as well. I took 2 workshops, ended up be giving a third type of way of accessing. And so I was able to lie in bed at night and regress myself into another dimension and learn. And again, another way of clearing blocks. Whatever way you want to do, the key is to be able to be ensured that your energy is released and that everything flows easily within your body without any concerns, worries, etc. You are a whole being, and I know, and I got myself sidetracked there again. That's why I wanted my book, so I could stay on track a bit more. But I'm not touching this table again. Hang on a sec, I just have a little bit more water. I've been working with this cough and cold now for several days. It takes a while. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, there's so many different ways that I wanted to philosophically that I wanted to share. Just hold on a sec. If you got a moment. We're not. I just wanted to see what else I had wanted to say. Yeah, using your memory banks to find these things. The feelings that we carry. Actually, one of the things in a minute, I wanted to, I've talked a lot about, I've got here, this is what I actually wrote here on guilt. I have discovered guilt is man's biggest emotional enemy. Fear you can walk through, anger you can release, but guilt is a stagnant, almost clinging energy. The only way I found to release guilt, especially guilt which is carried on the soul and therefore has been around for a long time, is to let the light have it. I have found light is the greatest transformer of blocked emotional energy there is. And it is true. The more you can connect with light, the easier it is. One of the things that I found, when I'm going to go back to guilt for a moment, when I realized that I had the cancer come 2 years ago, I didn't want to really accept that, except it was on my arm and it looked horrible, so I had to. I thought that just by taking having the surgery, having it taken out, that would be it. No, it came back more ferocious. And then I had to go into treatment, which I was fighting. I'm known for being stubborn. Plus had my arm radiated, which is what created this last problem. is because when they took something, they wanted to do a biopsy, it didn't heal. So I've got my whole upper arm looks a mess. I can't use this arm properly, or the elbow properly. Anyway, there's a lot of guilt can come up because of that, because I'm supposed to be enlightened, knowing, etc. And I had to let that go. I have to be not embarrassed, because as a spiritual teacher, how come I got all this? Well, we are comprised of so much. And so I still don't know what the source of this was, really. But I do know that I've had 2 years from the first surgery, which was March 22nd, 2 years ago. I have had a journey where I haven't always felt great, where and the treatment, which actually has taken everything from my body, and this was a skin cancer, my melanoma, this big. But anyway, that I've had to come to and I have found, hang on, I got ahead of myself. And I have found many times I've had to go through something so I can understand what others are doing. My life hasn't been easy. I've had my ups and downs, and I've had to deal with the emotionality that many people deal. And a lot of that I was able to transform to be able to help others. This journey, with the help of some friends, especially one who's been right by my side through the whole thing, has been not easy for me. Get teary thinking about it, because I thought I would be more, I would have more things more together, but I haven't. And I don't know why I'm teary about this, but we like to have a sense that we can handle everything easily. And in some ways I have. But I wish I'd stayed whole longer. Anyway, that's not a very good way for me to end this, because I want you to go inside. I'm not sad in my body. I'm sad in my eyes, which of course is emotional. Anyway, wow, I didn't expect this. Let's clear this up right now. Now, one of the things I want to say is that we meet things very often because you need to understand them. Unfortunately, in my family, the majority of on my mother's side have been cancer people. On my father's side, it's been heart. That explains the different personalities. My mother's side, all the women look just like me, and she comes from a large family. They all, I think I had one aunt that wasn't the larger built. Genetics play a large part, and eventually we are part of that bigger family, whether we know where we come from or we don't. Because I was born later in my mother's life, and she was one of the younger ones of her 12 family of 12, I got to see all the aunts and the uncles. I got to see them. All the aunts were big like me. The uncles were not. Not that I had many uncles, but it's because they're mostly girls. Genetics plays a large part in what often you have to deal with. And I have dealt with a certain amount of genetics. I think when I'm in talking with you today, I realize I still have some genetic work to do. Genetics are interesting. And I've always been interested. Going into university, I had this conflict. Do I go ahead or in university, or do I have my career go? I chose the career for a couple of reasons, mainly because I loved it. But it's like now it might be time for me to turn a little more into the genetics. And I have to thank you for that, because I haven't been sitting here today talking with you. I wouldn't have got to that, because I just feel now that I'm older, I'm just waiting for the knock on the door and say, come on to this side. But maybe there's some more work for me to do. So I must thank you for that. And thank you, Karen, for being here so supportive and letting me know I froze. So now I'll go back and I'll delete the other one. This one is good, even though I'm teary at the end of it. But in a way, that's life. And it's given me something to look at it from a different perspective than I have when it comes to clearing. My mom died of cancer a few years ago. Not this kind. Pancreatic cancer. She's one of the younger sisters, so the other sisters have all gone. I think she was one of the last ones. I don't think I have an aunt left. So big. And I live way up here, so it makes a big difference too. No, they're all gone. So it's interesting when you look at families. I had a big family to look at. But as a child, I was like this. I didn't see anything. And I think that's one reason I left my country to come here to get a bigger perspective, because I had so much family, and my father was very dominant and my mother was very loving. So now you put those two together. So it's an interesting world I've lived in, to be able to sit back and observe, go back on my trips to New Zealand and observe and recognize differences. We all make our own pathway. And mine was to clear a lot of the things that happened in my childhood out of the way, so I could become who I became. And maybe now I can do, I didn't think there were any more, but I was thinking the other day, I should write something else, right? Because I've got a lot of little booklets and things. Some are bigger books and some are booklets, like this one, Connecting to the Light. A lot of good stuff in there. I read them myself, I go, wow, look at that. Look what I did. But anyway, and I was thinking the other day, now that my energy is beginning to come back, it's easy for me to sit here and talk to you, because I've always talked. That's not a problem for me, ever. And and I don't go out to speak any since COVID. Don't get me on my COVID rant. As soon as COVID arrived in my life, so much of it stopped. If I could strangle anything, it would be everyone that created that, because everything that I had going stopped. Couldn't have clients in. Couldn't speak to the groups I was speaking. No more meditation class. And by the time there's a couple of years passed, I was getting sick. And my living arrangement, my living space had changed. Everything changed. And so here we were. So maybe it is time to sit down and write and find something. And maybe it's part of this genetics, because I've never looked at that part. So I have to thank you. Thank you all. And thank you, Karen, because it is through you and others' support that keeps me going, that keeps me on. I have had the energy finally to go back and take a look at doing some shorts, which I'm doing through the tarot. And so that is great. Take care. Enjoy. If you have any questions, just get hold of me. I'll answer them, as you know. Keep well. Thank you. Thanks, Karen. Bye now.